Special guest, his name's Dave Hancocks.
Owner of Archie David Cars with many years experience in the motor trade.
Jim down the back alley with an oily rag is actually your friend in this business, and he's less likely to catch you than these big Glass Palace main dealer places. You're paying for that showroom, You're paying for the big white smiles and the glossy brochures.
This is John.
And this is Nick.
And this is How It Is.
How did you get here?
I drove.
Was it an
electric car? It was an electric car, yeah.
No, it was actually a diesel car. So I'll sit back and...
Because I did see you driving a Range Rover, and I'm surprised
That's
that
my
would
wife.
even get you.
That's my wife. Maybe like that, John.
Any lights on?
None at the moment, no.
I know you did. Unlike my Porsche.
Turn them all off.
It's actually
The black tape.
it's a surprisingly good thing. I think they get a bad press, to be honest, but people buy old doggy high mileage ones and don't maintain them properly, and then complain about them not being great. And well, that's the same with anything, isn't it? If you buy a doggy old house that's a few hundred years old and things fall off it and go wrong, that's
what
the same with
PCP's for, yeah? But it is with
Yeah,
Range Rover.
absolutely,
Get on a PCP, can get it back, high spec, put it back. But my missus doesn't understand that. When I spoke to her about a PCP, I said, well, that's what you need. You do like 5,000 miles a year. You want a flash car. You want to change it every 3 years. And she went, no, it doesn't work like that. I went, I've been in this game since 1997. She went, no, it doesn't work.
She's
like
not
that.
a convert.
No, she just doesn't listen to me.
I mean, there's a load of financial products these days. Remember when you started financing, you, Nick, as well, and it was very much the norm was 3 years HP, and that was it, wasn't it? And there's certainly more things now, so many different ways to finance things, and they obviously all exist because there's demand for all of them. And whilst PCP is a great product for some people, there are lots of examples where it doesn't work so well. Go over the mileage limits, damage the car.
So what is the biggest one these days? Because I've been out of selling cars for a while. So what would you say the most is?
I mean, we sell price range cars. Our least expensive cars are around 5,000. The most expensive is under 20. So we don't do a great deal of PCP. It tends to be, the PCP market tends to be in cars up to 3 years old, 4 years old. And really ours are sort of 5 to 10 years old. And most of our customers are straight HP, a bit of a deposit or a £500 banger in part exchange, and away they go on the monthly.
So what would you say is the biggest problem? What's the biggest thing you come up against, store? Biggest pain in the ass for you, month in, month out?
It's the unpredictability of this game. It's very, very difficult to produce any kind of figures or any kind of forecast when you're to a certain extent beholden to people walking through the door and buying something. We're a traditional dealership. We don't have a huge online presence. We're not an online only tucked away in a warehouse somewhere business. We're a traditional main road site retailer, and we advertise on all the trade about our own website, and but still the biggest source of customer leads for us is people walking in and saying, I saw this yesterday, is it still for sale? Yeah. Or my friend bought one from here, and we get a lot of repeat business. And
do you think that's increasingly rare?
I think so, yeah. I think a lot of people I know have moved away from the model that we follow and have scaled down the amount of stock they hold and have opted to either work from home if they got space at home to keep some stock, or to rent a cost-effective unit on industrial estate somewhere and plough their money into Auto Trader. And there's twos and fro's with each business model. I think you've got to do what works for you. But the sort of cars we sell are forecourt cars. They're kind of run-of-the-mill bread and butter cars. They're not exotic sports cars, performance cars, luxury cars. Just ordinary stuff. Focus, Fiesta.
It's interesting you say that you get a lot of repeat business, because one thing I've noticed is the big difference between a franchise dealer and an independent dealer. Now, a franchise dealer is that they want that customer for life. It's repeat. PCP was invented just for that reason, so they could get them every 2-3 years. Constantly got the car back in. That's exactly it. But then you've got the independent dealer, and predominantly with the customers I used to deal with over the years, and they just want to hit and run. The only ever time they ever want to see that customer again is if they're coming back and buying the car. If somebody's got a broken windscreen wiper, or the bulb has gone on an indicator, You know, they're like, oh, no, I don't want to pay for it, even though it's £25.
They actually
But
say,
maybe
I
that's
never
the
want to
difference.
see this customer
Yeah.
ever again. That's what they say.
I know, that's a
And
very
then
big
you are beholden to the likes of Auto Trader. It's interesting. I think if you look at the data, it's easy to go, well, the data says I should have an indoor showroom. The data says this is what sells. I guess what you're saying, Dave, in some ways, is that you've got to trust the market and you've got to trust your presence. And there might not be so much science behind that, but you're at least going against the grain of everyone trying to follow the science.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Nick, to be honest. Yeah, it's a difficult call to make. And whilst, Auto Trader says you should have 50 images of every car and 2 videos and this and that and all these other things, a lot of my customers just come in and go, yeah, I like that. How much is it a month? And there's no more to it than that. I mean, but it's different for everybody. If you're selling a niche car or a product that's not out there, it's, yeah.
And, it's interesting because when we started up the compliance guys, I went back into selling cars myself.
Well, I was one of your first customers.
Was you?
It was, yeah.
I didn't sell you a car.
No, the compliance guy.
Oh, compliance guys, right.
he was one of the
I was
first-
going to say that.
He was one of the first people when it was £25 a month to go, can I get a discount on that?
That's about right.
Nothing personal.
But the big difference that I noticed, from like a 20-year gap is that when we were selling cars in 97 or 98, customers used to come in and they'd know nothing about the car. And you'd have to know everything about it. Now, people come in, they know more about the car than you know it, because they've been analysing it against one car, against another website. We didn't even have a website when I was selling
It's
cars.
completely polarised these days. People are completely one way or the other. I mean, we sold a car earlier this week. An older lady came in, asked what the green car was outside, told her it was an Astra. She said, can I get a suitcase in the boot? I said, well, yeah, go and have a look if you want to. She said, oh, no. She said, I'll take your word for it. How much is it? I said, well, it's £7,000. She said, well, I'll have that. And that was all it was. And then by completely at the other end is, an easy one for the board, isn't it? But at the other end, there's, 20 questions. Is it this? Is it that? Has this been done? Has that been done? And it's like we say, years ago, people just come and bought something. And there's a lot more information out there. And internet reviews is another thing. People are reading reviews, not only of dealers, but of cars. And obviously, they're so subjective. And for everyone who says, oh, that's a terrible car, I wouldn't have one of them, there's literally a million people driving around them that never have a problem.
Unless it's Range Rover.
So I don't understand this irrational hatred of Range Rover. I'll be honest with you, I don't want to name drop here. I was completely against my wife had a Range Rover. We had an X7 before, an X5 before that. I really didn't want to have one. And a very well-known guy in the trade, Roger Sumner, convinced me that they weren't actually as terrible as everybody said they were. And 30,000 miles in, no real problem.
Well, you're getting a vote, though.
No.
There's nothing more annoying than when people
happy
call
to
it a
sell,
baby range.
Do you remember the Chrysler 300C? People used to describe that as a baby
rod.
Bentley.
Oh no, the 300C.
baby Bentley,
What was I thinking of? The Chrysler PT Cruise. Did you remember people
Yes,
called
I
that as a
do.
gimmick as well?
That was a terrible car.
Yeah.
There's no truly terrible cars anymore, but that was one.
Other than everything American.
Yeah, an American's awful. Sorry, Brad Matthews.
I'm French.
I don't know. I think French cars get a hard time, and we sell a lot of French cars because they're decent spec and they're good value for money generally.
Well, I worked for Peugeot for like 7
Were they new
years. Yeah, well, they were alright at the time, but 306s, we still have the 306 and the 205.
205 was a cracking
And then
car,
the
yeah.
307 came out. And I always said there's only 2 things wrong with it. It was badly built and badly designed. other than that, it was great.
The 206 and the 307, you check if it was in gear, but you still didn't know because the gearbox was that wobbly.
Like stirring porridge, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, you've talked about your site. How did you first get into sell cars?
Well, I left school at 16, didn't take the academic route. I worked for a small, full story. I went to college for 7 days. And they sell college to you as it's nothing like school. Well, it was exactly like school. You sit in a classroom, someone at the front barks at you, you're expected to write things down, and you need to turn up on time every day. And so it's just like school, but you didn't have to wear a uniform. And I remember ringing my mother from the phone box outside and saying, I jacked the course in, and she said, don't come home without a job. And on the way home, I walked home the long way round, give me some thinking time. And there was a garage, and it had been sort of empty and derelict for a number of years, and there was a transporter there unloading cars, and a couple of guys sweeping up and putting signs up and that kind of thing. And I just went and knocked the door and said, is there a job here for me? and they started me for a week's trial, and I was there for a few months. I went to a Jaguar Land Rover dealer for a while after that, and came out of that for nearly 15 years and worked in the construction industry.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then made redundant when the company I was working for was bought out by another one, and put my redundancy money into another business, which kind of led back into cars.
So did you always feel like you were going to get back into cars at some point?
We always said I wouldn't. It was kind of, it's a funny game, and they call it a game because it is a game, and it's a game in your own head as much as it is. It's a game on spreadsheets and dealing with customers and things, but it's very addictive, and when it's good, it's really, really good, and when it's bad, it's a very lonely, desolate place, particularly as an independent. We're a very small team.
I think it's a common story, though. If you ask most motor dealers, that would be exactly the same story. I always say no one like grew up and said I want to be a car salesman.
No, nobody did.
We all failed at something and then decided that we were going to sell cars. And I think it's then what you choose to do afterwards is then the measure of you. And I think for that reason, because there was never quite a plan to start with, it does then get lonely because you're always questioning yourself as, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Is that something you've asked yourself over the years?
Well, yeah, I suppose. I mean, there's always a bit of soul searching in there and everything, and you think, why have we not done so many this month? Have we got the right stock? Am I saying the wrong things to the wrong people? I mean, my role now is we've grown quite a lot in the last few years, so now my role is really buying and overseeing the prep. So I'm back office these days, whereas like we've got a salesperson and my wife's involved in the business as well, and they deal predominantly with the customers.
His wife gave up teaching for 20.
Yeah,
20 years?
But to be fair, I listened to her speak. She's not that old, John.
I thought it was about 20 years.
It was she would work. She was in teaching from uni, and she would have done a solid 15 years at development. She just came in one day and she said, I can't face it anymore. I said, well then don't. I suppose they better.
Instead of dealing with children, deal with customers. I don't think that was
yeah, I mean, she got out of it predominantly because 15 years ago when she started, the children didn't respect you, and that made the job difficult. But now the problem is, depending on what kind of school you're teaching in, from my understanding of it, is you don't get a lot of support from above either, and they will occasionally side with the kids against you. And she just got sick of the backstabbing and the hierarchy of it, and being constantly promised things and dangled carrots. And
that does sound like the motor trade.
It's kind of sounds like worked in a franchise.
I think with the motor trade, they do it to your face. They don't do it behind your back.
Yeah, I think I finished selling cars at 23, 24 years old, and promised myself I'd never ever deal with the general public again. And luckily, I've got to 41, and that's still the reality. I just
something that I always think about though is that selling cars is an easy entry business to do, and do you think because of some unscrupulous people that gives the whole kind of independent car dealer that bad rap, that Arthur Daly, that kind of.
And the motor trade's a perverse place. I mean, we had I sold someone a car a year ago, and they took it to a franchise dealer for servicing, and the franchise dealer did the classic health check, which is, as we all know, really deep down is just a way to increase turnover and profit for them. And if the workshop's quiet, they find more things wrong with your car. And there was a side of A4 slagging the back out of our car. And we said, well, they came back and they said, well, we can't believe this car is this bad after a year, so well, let me have a look. And we sent it to an independent local dealer who's by no means a specialist in that car. And they just egged everything up, they'd amped everything up to try and scare the customer either into buying a car from them or into think. I say it's a perverse place because Jim down the back alley with an oily rag is actually a friend in this business, and he's less likely to catch you than these big glass palace main dealer places. And when you walk in, you've got to remember, you're paying for that showroom, you're paying for those people with the big white smiles and the glossy brochures, and it's ultimately that's coming from you, and it's not there for free, is it?
Yeah, something we've noticed. Let's talk about SAF, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Which is the thing at the moment, and love it or hate it. I don't really want to say too much because about my opinion on the whole thing, but there's not many car dealers out there in the franchise deal world who've actually sat it.
Yeah.
And the reason is that the business manager will sit there,
Yeah.
and the car salesman will give it, I'll buy you lunch. So he's on his one-man mission to get 100 out of 100. You know what I mean? Which he never will with SAF because it's...
No,
No,
that's
except
what I said.
questions change all the time.
The
Yeah.
reason I'm fat is because everyone used to buy me a sandwich for doing Saturday.
But you know what I mean? So, you know, how right is that? You know, and then you've got the FLA saying like everybody should do it. So,
I mean,
who's actually learning from it?
Unless you're never going to be able to regulate that. Unless you call people into a classroom. I mean, in construction, we had the CSCS card test, which involved you to go to the driving test theory centre, and you couldn't take notes, you couldn't take a phone, and it was 50 odd questions, bang, off you go.
Yeah.
With SAF, obviously, because there's not that level of oversight, I think, there's probably, I'd imagine people doing SAF for other people is endemic. Absolutely.
Do you feel like...
Is it a box ticking exercise, or is it genuinely designed to benefit the consumer?
My
I wouldn't expect you
personal
to answer
opinion,
that.
am I allowed to say my personal opinion? It's a tick box.
Yeah.
Exercise.
So many things are there.
It's funny though, isn't it? Obviously, we do financial compliance, which is there's a lot of regulations. I'm sure we'll get on to what you feel about all that. But there's very little regulation for actually selling a death box. You know, when you look at it like that, anyone can pick up a car, and everything's after the fact, isn't it? You know, like if you sell a death trap, it's only when you've sold 5 of them and someone tells trading standards and they do an investigation that there's really any regulation that's going to come and bite you in the arse. Do you feel like that? Do you feel that the barrier to entry for dealers is fair, and does that affect your business?
Pre-Consumer Rights Act, everyone bangs on about CRA, but really CRA is what we all should have been doing all along. And it's very easy to hark back to the Sales Rights Act and go, oh, it was great when we had 5 chances to fix a stick in an electric window. Yeah, but it was. But the problem with it doesn't really deal with things effectively, in so much that somebody's right to buy a £500 car shouldn't be the same. I mean, no one really retails £500 cars, telling you thing. But for a £2,000 or £3,000 car, as a £200,000 or £300,000 car, your rights are the same. Well, yeah, your rights should be the same, but the expectation needs to be adjusted. And the problem with the legislation is, although it's well-meaning, it ostensibly makes the burden of what is reasonable fall to a court decision. Well, I mean,
It's too late at that point.
generally, people who buy £3,000 cars don't have retained counsel and don't want to stick whether this is fair and reasonable in front of a judge. It's too blanket. The legislation's not, in a way, specific enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, financial compliance, which is what we do. What do you do for compliance in your business? And
Make all my problems your problem. Pay a monthly fee.
And well, that is one answer to the problem, isn't it? Do you feel like people try and do too much themselves? Do you feel like they should be outsourcing things?
I think it's an absolute minefield, and so much of it is common sense, but so much of it, essentially, I pay you guys to be interpreters. The finance conduct, the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority, bring out all these dictates and all these things that should and shouldn't be happening, and they write it in such confusing language. I'm not by any means the most intelligent man on the planet, but I like to think I can read a piece of paper and absorb its meaning and translate that to how that works in my business. But I can't. I'm literally, they may as well write it in Dutch. I pay you guys to tell me the difference between what they're writing and what it actually means for me and how I need to put that into practice.
Well, then they got it wrong themselves when they went in front of the court recently. What do you know about that Court of Appeal decision around commission, and what do you think about it?
I mean, it's obviously going to lead to a lot of historic claims. For every ambulance, there's an ambulance chaser, and there's got a lot of these low rent, poor quality solicitor companies are going to be chasing, trying to get people commission. I mean, I know a guy who's in the leisure industry, he sells caravans and motorhomes, and he's had people writing to him about vehicles they bought in the late 90s. That he doesn't even have paperwork for anymore.
That's definitely statute barred.
Yeah, of course it's statute barred, but they're just trying it on, aren't they? People are chancers, and the biggest problem here is Martin Lewis. And he's coming out with all these things, and oh, you can do this, oh, you can do that. These scumbag car dealers have upped the rate on you. But to a certain extent also, I can see the flip side of it, because the merit trade's brought on itself. The way people used to sell finance was, frankly, appalling. someone would go in and say to a large car warehouse, car supermarket type setup, where I believe it was prolific. If I'm speaking out of turn, let me know.
I used to work at one.
There we go. There we go. So someone would come in and say, "What? I need some finance. What can I have for £150 a month?" And you'd show them a few things that were really £110 a month, and turn the rate up so you had more commission. And that was a dirty, scummy trick.
Lump in PPI.
Yeah.
That business model still exists. You know, like we've had people speak to us since then and going, well, like, how are we supposed to make any money? We make no money on the car. We have to make it on the commission.
I don't see how you don't make money on the car.
Like, it's just price. You know, it's just price then to get people in the door. But that can never be a positive for a customer, can it?
Well, no, of course not. No, it's not. That's a bad outcome for customer. And it's a very target-driven industry, but at the same time, I know people in franchise dealers who are targeted for 30 cars a month. They sold the 30 cars a month, but because they didn't stick the bag of polish or the alloy and tyre entrustment, what's that? Like, into the customer, then they're not getting any commission on the 30 cars they sold because they haven't sold all the extras and the bolt-ons, and you didn't get any gap on that one. So
something we see all the time, which surprises the hell out of us, is that when you do an FCA application, you have to give a financial analysis, and that's 3 years pre.
You always get that.
I always get.
It's a good job you don't do the application.
Yeah, I don't get involved in it.
It's the past full financial year, the current one, and 3 in the future.
Yeah.
And these people, car dealers, a lot of them have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, like what's your cost going to be? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
How much are you going to make on each car? I don't know. How much is your rent? I'll ask the accountant. Hang on, you started a business and you don't actually know how many cars you need to sell to make a profit. Well, no, I've got 50 grand. I've bought some cars. I'm going to sell them, and I'm going to make some money. But you don't actually know if that's going to make you any money. Like,
terrifying, isn't it?
It's frightening. One dealer rang us up and said, "What does the word revenue mean?"
Oh shit!
Honest to God, and we were like, "Really? Is this really happening?" And that's the worrying thing about it being a easy entry kind of business. Do these people really understand their own business?